Hello, and welcome to the Empress podcast. I am your host, Jessica, known in the online space as Jess the Empress. I started this podcast to help you be present with yourself, cope with chaos, and simplify your life. I do this by combining psychology, behavioral science, and the tarot. I have a background in mental health, specifically a master's in clinical social work from USC, and I'm a professional tarot reader. So get ready to have a nurturing, creative, and empowering experience with me as we use practical magic. Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back to the pod. It's your girl, Jess, here to give you the message for February. It's taken me a little while to get everything together. I have been heads down in a project for work. I'm finally coming up for air. I have the bandwidth to record a podcast episode. And so that is why I am just a few days late. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your patience. Let's go ahead and dive in. I actually pulled the tarot card for the month ahead like a couple of weeks ago. But like I said, I just didn't have the space to really sit down to do any research, to like feel into the message. But it is the Knight of Cups. And that is the tarot card for February. When I get this card, I'm often reminded about self love, and that self love is very different than kind of like what we see online because it's so performative online. And I feel like it is a problem the way that self love is pitched online. Let's go ahead and get into it. I feel like it is so important to unpack wellness culture. It drives me insane, to be honest with you guys. I see so much wrong stuff online. And then I see that in my sessions, whether it's a coaching session or a tarot session. I will give you some examples that I'm sure you've used because they're just so common to pick up and they sound good. They sound like they're right. However, we're going to see that they're not rooted in anything real. Um, let's get into it. I want to ask you to rate and review my podcast. Giving me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts would mean the world to me. I love knowing who's listening and what everyone is getting from the episode, so please take a moment of your time to share your thoughts, and I look forward to reading your reviews soon. Self-love is more than just a feeling. And I think that's what happens online, is that it's taught as simply a feeling. And I'm going to push back on that because the Knight of Cups is asking us to consider, what is a loving action? When we have a knight showing up in our tarot reading, it can represent movement, it can represent pace. And then we look to the suit that it is holding. And in this instance, it is cups. So we have feeling, we have intuition, we have spirituality. This knight is moving, taking action, taking spiritual action, taking emotional action, taking loving action, intuitive action. And you don't have to love yourself in any moment in order to do something loving for yourself. Okay, let me say it again. You don't have to be experiencing a feeling of love to take loving action. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up because they think that they need to have some type of feeling going on alongside of the action with them. But self-love doesn't always have a feeling of love. It doesn't always feel warm and fuzzy. It doesn't always feel like, butterflies or being wrapped in a cozy blanket or relaxing. Like, that's just not the case sometimes. Okay. And when the Knight of Cups comes up, it is to inquire, to say, am I maybe stopping myself from taking loving action because I don't feel a sense of kindness towards myself, because I don't feel like I want to do these things, because things feel hard. Maybe I'm not taking action because of my feelings. And we're working on mastering this art of loving action despite whatever might be going on in our inner world. Let's examine what real love is. Okay. It is not an Instagram quote, it is not a manifestation journal. It is not showing up on days that it's easy. That's that is a part of it, sure, but it's not all of it. Um, the Knight of Cups is consistently moving and it is loving action that it is taking. That is real love. Even when it's hard, even when it's challenging, there is nurturing and consistent care. It's okay that it's difficult sometimes. It really is okay. Let's kind of give ourselves a different way to look at this. Let's look at a garden. So, when we're planting a seed in a garden, we're watering it even when we're not inspired, right? Because we're not seeing anything. Yes, like we know the roots are taking hold, or we hope that the roots are taking hold, and we hope that we get to see some life sprouting up over the dirt soon, but it doesn't happen right away. I'm just kind of feeling like just watering your plants can be kind of boring, especially when there's like nothing to see or it's shed its leaves, it's like lost its flowers, its bloom. You get what I'm saying, right? What about pulling weeds? It's kind of boring too. We would rather be doing so many other things than tending to the garden in that moment of pulling weeds. And I think that's okay. What about if your plants are struggling? What if there's something going on in your garden and you have to take the time to research? You investigate, you get out there, you get your hands dirty, you get on your hands and knees. You're like, what is going on? I've got to figure this out so that there can be growth, so everything can be okay for my plants and for my garden. You also might put up some boundaries, and it might be a literal fence because maybe there's some rabbits that are hungry or some other little critters that want to get into the garden, right? You protect it. That is what love is. It is a set of behaviors, it is a commitment to act in a way that aligns with your values, regardless of your emotions. And think of emotions as weather, they change. It changes from day to day. Some days you might be bright and sunny inside, other days you might be stormy. Look, regardless of that, you have to tend to your garden. You got to do it. I want to circle back to the social media. Okay. I'm on it. I hate it. I hate it so much. Um, because it's so misguided. Not what I do on social media, but in general, social media is like very performative. So we have a lot of toxic positivity, we have spiritual bypassing, and this is all under the umbrella of the self love movement. Um, Here are some more concrete examples. Someone saying, just choose love, just choose love, just choose love. Like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Um, Love is hard to feel, to conjure as a feeling sometimes. It's hard to just choose love like as a feeling. And that's again why we need to remember that love is more than a feeling, it is a set of actions. Another thing I see that's particularly damaging is if you don't love yourself fully, then you will not receive love. And I just don't think that's true. I have not found that to be true in my personal life. I have not found that to be actually true in the lives of my clients, again, be it coaching or tarot reading. I haven't found that to be true in the lives of my friends and family members because we've all loved people when they have not been capable of loving themselves. Whether that's a day, whether that is like the kind of phase of life that they're in is learning to love themselves, we have often loved people before they've loved themselves, probably many times over. And so that statement is just inaccurate. And also, I think this idea that we have to love ourselves fully prevents us from showing up in spaces where we can receive love because there's this idea that we're not 100%. And I think 100% is way um, in the sphere of perfectionism. And you guys know that I don't do that. I don't believe in it. I want to push back on that as much as I possibly can because I want you to show up in your messiness. I want you to show up in your vulnerability. I want you to show up in your humanness and be loved there because that is where love is the most profound and transformational and incredible. And lastly, I think the biggest thing I've seen regarding social media stuff is like bad feelings mean that you're not doing self love right. And I'm just going to continue to eye roll at that. I am just going to continue to say whatever, when I see stuff like that, because I don't find that to be true. I have found instead that the difficult feelings that I have experienced when I'm pushing myself because I'm acting in a way that matters to me, because I'm choosing a set of behaviors that align with my values, when it doesn't feel good, it's when I'm doing self-love exactly right. Because I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm letting go of something that wasn't serving me. And I am developing a greater sense of love for myself by doing hard things. I know I'm capable of doing hard things. And so I go do the hard things, and it doesn't always feel good. There are days I wake up and I just have a storm inside. And I don't immediately think to myself, oh my God, I'm off track. I'm not loving myself. Something is wrong. No, I don't think that because I've been doing this work for a long time. And if you find yourself waking up in a bad mood or whatever, and you start to have those thoughts, I want you to remember the Knight of Cups. And I want you to remember that you can do really loving things for yourself on days when you just aren't feeling loving towards yourself. And that's self love. It is showing up for yourself, regardless of your emotional state. Okay. What is on your list of things to do that you know are good for you? Whether that is meditation, it's a yoga practice, it is eating well, it is drinking water, it is setting those boundaries and saying, oh my gosh, you know what? I don't have the bandwidth for this conversation. I would love to hear what you have to say. Let me circle back to you in like 4 or 5 hours. Or let me go take these deep breaths in between caretaking for someone, for my kids, whatever. Let me take these deep breaths. Let me ground into the earth and let me come back into the room because that's what you need to do for yourself so you can show up in the world and have the impact that you want to have. The reason I think a lot of this just choose love and you can, and if you don't love yourself fully, no one will love you kind of thing. It's harmful because it it doesn't allow it creates like this distrust of our own natural emotional rhythms. I say natural because I want to reiterate that it is natural and normal to have fluctuating emotions. It's just part of the human experience. You're going to have ebbs and flows like water. Okay. We actually see water in the Knight of Cups. There's a river behind him. Now, I don't even know anything about this river, but I want to just say sometimes there's rivers that are calm. Sometimes there are rivers that have rapids, you know, again, pointing toward emotional rhythms. Okay. But the night is still moving. Hey there, coffee lovers. Are you tired of settling for boring coffee? I have a treat for you. Today's episode is brought to you by Heartwork Coffee Bar, your one-stop destination for exceptional coffee experiences. Whether you're a coffee connoisseur or just someone who appreciates a great cup of joe, Heartwork Coffee Bar is here to elevate your coffee game to new heights. At Heartwork Coffee Bar, they take pride in their craft because each batch is carefully roasted to perfection, ensuring that every sip is a symphony of flavor. From the rich and the robust to the light and fruity, they have a coffee blend for every palate. And here's the best part. For you amazing podcast listeners, Heartwork Coffee Bar is offering an exclusive 10% discount on your purchase. Just use the code EMPRESS10 at checkout and you'll save big on your order. Why settle for ordinary when you can indulge in the extraordinary coffee from Heartwork Coffee Bar? Remember to use code EMPRESS10 for that special 10% discount and treat yourself to the coffee experience that you deserve. Don't miss out on this fantastic offer. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks to Heartwork Coffee Bar for making today's episode possible. Now go grab your favorite mug, brew a fresh cup, and enjoy the podcast with the perfect companion, Heartwork Coffee Bar. Cheers. The night is taking action. But, this online stuff, it doesn't allow us to trust our own rhythms. It doesn't allow us to fully be in our humanity. And then we end up experiencing shame because self love doesn't always feel good. And when it doesn't feel good, we feel bad. Again, we're like adding shame onto our already sort of bad feelings or our negative emotional state. And so we're like digging that hole even deeper. And it's harder to climb out of that. It's really difficult to climb out of shame. And I hope today, you're getting inspired to kind of leave unnecessary shame at the door. So, because when we're feeling challenged and things are feeling hard or bad, if we keep adhering to this, just choose love all the time, and bad feelings mean, you're doing self love wrong. If we adhere to that, then we're actually ignoring opportunity for growth, real self development, and we're bypassing legitimate pain. And bypassing pain is a problem because we never get to heal. We never get to heal it. We're just continuing to push it away, continuing to push it away or push it down. We can only do that for so long before it naturally has to reconcile itself in our body and our mind. So, why not do it as it's coming up? Why not take that beast head on? Because you're going to be way more equipped to handle it in the moments that you're recognizing it than if you keep pushing it, pushing it, pushing it, and pushing it away. And I think, honestly, that if it is coming up in a moment, it means you can't handle it, that you have the actual space and bandwidth to feel it bubble up, which is incredible. It tells me that you've got everything you need. You need to let go of the mind kind of dictating like, this is a good feeling, this is a bad feeling, this is a problem. Again, going back to using feelings as a measure for if something is working or not working. I think if negative feelings are coming up, your self love development is actually probably working. It is learning how to sit with those feelings that might be the next step. It is also learning to, again, like we're talking about today, continue to take, continuing to take the right action for yourself, even though, you're feeling some type of way. And then, lastly, I feel like it makes us ignore our intuition, and we're like favoring, forced positivity. And that has a lot of negative consequences in our lives. I use two books to do a lot of my research, and one of them is Tarot for Change, and the second one is 78 Degrees of Tarot Wisdom. Tarot for Change is done by Jessica Dore, and 78 Degrees of Wisdom is written by Rachel Pollack. Now, Tarot for Change, there was something in there that I actually wrote down that I found to be the best way to say everything I've been saying today. But Jessica says that self love is not a prerequisite for growth, it is a byproduct of committed action. And I like that. So you don't have to love yourself to grow. You just have to continue to take the committed action that you need to take. And I just love that. I think it's a beautiful sentiment. Think about building trust. Think about how you do that with a friend or with a loved one. Trust, it is a feeling that you experience with someone, but how is that feeling established? It is established through consistent behavior over time, and that feeling of trust strengthens. It's the same thing with ourselves. And February is about strengthening that trust. The Knight of Cups is saying, hey, what is the action that you can be taking that will strengthen the love you have for yourself, even when you don't feel loving? This is such an important life skill. It really is. I'm going to talk about, three practical things that you can do here. We've got the first one, which is the values action bridge. And what this looks like is, first you're going to identify your core values. And your core values are not what you think they should be based on society's expectations and stuff like that. It's just like, what do you really care about? What do you really value? Okay. Write those things down. And then you're going to choose a small action that matches that value. I value supporting my local farmers. And a small action that I do every other week, I get a farmer's box that's full of really awesome vegetables that come directly from that farm. And I go pick it up at the farmer's market. Small action, right? I mean, I'm not like changing the world, but I value what other people, the hard work that other people do. I value putting money back into my local area, and I love to eat vegetables. So these things totally match up for me. That's something that I do. And I do commit to these things regardless of how I feel. And there have been Sundays, but that's the day that I go pick it up, that I'm really tired. There's when I got other things going on, when I'm feeling rushed, when I'm feeling pressured, but I still show up. I don't leave it there. I don't say, oh, I'll pick it up next week or like, hey, sorry, I can't make it. Like, no, I figure something out. I make it happen. And then you have to track your follow through, not your feelings, as I just explained. The second practical step is the boundary practice. Think of a boundary that you are going to set, a small one per week. In this boundary, let's say, for example, you're wanting to create more space between yourself and your work. And your boundary could be, okay, I'm not going to check my email until 9 a.m. So then write that down and commit yourself to maintaining that boundary. Since you're changing behavior, right, and you're creating more space for yourself, what we're kind of looking at is a time where you didn't have space for yourself. So that growth of no space to space for yourself is going to feel a little funky. But part of this process in the boundary setting is noticing your emotions, noticing your emotional responses and not judging it, just noticing it. What are you experiencing? What's happening in your body? What's happening in your mind? What's happening in your mind and body connection as you continue to commit to this action of not checking your email until 9 a.m.? What I want you to celebrate is your commitment, not the outcome. Yes, the outcome is, yeah, you got more space, which is awesome. But you're showing up, you are committing to taking that space. That is worth celebrating. You are worth celebrating. And then the third thing you can do is a self care audit. Let's talk about basic needs. Let's talk about sleep, movement, nutrition. Write those things down. List all of your basic needs and then create some really simple, sustainable routines. I think sustainable is a key word here. I know we can get lofty in our ideas, and you'll know pretty soon whether or not your ideas are lofty because you'll find it really challenging to follow through and stay committed. So if you are in that space, just do a redo, keep it simple. These basic needs are a non negotiable for you from now on: sleep, nutrition, body movement. These are not things that you are willing to negotiate no matter how you feel, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what's happening in your nuclear system. And this is why it has to be sustainable. So it can't be that, I'm going to move every single day at 3 p.m. sharp. That's not really flexible. Okay. We got to have some balance here. What I mean by non negotiable is that by the end of the day, you have done those things that you said you were going to do for yourself. You have protected those things that you said matter to you and you've followed through. So there are times where I don't get a yoga practice in until after I shower, which is usually in the evening. Other days I get it in at, 8:30 in the morning. It doesn't matter as long as I show up for myself. Same thing for journaling, same thing for pulling cards for myself. A lot of different practices that I have, I do accomplish by the end of the day. And I think that could be a great place to start without setting a hard timeline, just saying like, okay, I'm going to do these things at the end of the day. I think the other thing I see that's a little problematic and it does fall under this self-care audit, is online. There's a lot of talk of like, I'm going to reward myself with a walk outside. I'm going to reward myself with a healthy meal. But I actually want you to see these things that you do for yourself as acts of respect, not a reward. When you have this reframe of like, I act respectfully towards myself, this is an act of self respect, that is way more powerful. And I find it way more, I don't know if motivating is the word. Yeah, I find it much more relatable, and I'm more inclined to behave with acts of respect than I will under this idea that I should be rewarding myself. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Maybe that will resonate with you as well. The Knight of Cups is saying, your intuition has been guiding you to authentic self love action all along. Those uncomfortable feelings when you break a promise to yourself, that is your inner wisdom speaking and saying, okay, if I'm breaking promises, what do I need to do? Why am I breaking promises? Getting really curious about why that might be happening. Because once you investigate it, you can then create a plan of action, a lot like I just talked about, that will match up to your values and that will get you back into loving action and trying to do toxic positivity, but feeling kind of crappy about it. That's your intuition saying, hey, this isn't right. Something about this, just choose love, and feeling worse after kind of adopting this belief of like, I've got to love myself hard enough because then someone will finally love me, like that desperate feeling. Like that's an indication that there's something off. That's your intuition talking to you, asking you to really connect with what matters to you. And maybe it is the values of, hey, I can love myself where I'm at. I can continue to develop myself, and people can also love me where I'm at. Two things can be true at the same time. I highly encourage you to think about that. So the closing thoughts regarding the Knight of Cups and into, the month of February, it's not about feeling good all the time. Self-love is not about feeling good all the time. It is about honoring yourself. Self-love is about honoring your worth through consistent action. And if we measured our worth by our feelings, what a roller coaster ride that would be for us. What a ride. When you show up for yourself, especially when it's hard, that is a great way to measure your self worth. So, okay, there are days you're going to wake up, you don't feel love for yourself. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to abandon all the things you know that are in alignment with your values? Are you going to not do those actions? Are you going to neglect yourself? Are you going to, yeah, are you going to neglect yourself? Or are you going to commit to behaving in a way that is loving, even if you don't feel love at the moment? And I will just close with this, self love, it's not this thing that's in the future. It is always right here, right now. You don't have to perform and shapeshift and be this perfect person to receive your love. It is always available, always in any moment. And however you are taking that action for yourself, right? Those choices you make, they matter, and they can tell you a lot about where you are with your self love journey. So I hope that this helps. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.